What if the biggest source of your stress, your relationship problems, and your 3 a.m. anxiety wasn't actually out there in the world? What if it was a setting in your mind that nobody ever taught you how to change? That might sound like a bold claim, but there's a book that's been quietly sitting on shelves since the 1970s, and the people who actually practice what it teaches keep saying the same thing: everything got lighter. Not because their problems disappeared, but because they started seeing differently. It's called A Course in Miracles. And if that name makes you want to click away, I get it. It sounds religious. It sounds like something your aunt would recommend between tarot readings. But here's what it actually is: a structured, practical training program for your mind. No beliefs required. No guru to follow, just a daily practice that rewires how you perceive everything around you. Think of it this way. Imagine you've been wearing tinted glasses your entire life. Not sunglasses. Nothing obvious. Just a slight filter over everything you see. This tint colors every interaction, every email, every glance from a stranger. It makes neutral things look threatening. It makes ordinary moments feel heavy. It turns your partner's silence into rejection and your colleague's tone into disrespect. The thing about these glasses is that you don't know you're wearing them. You think this is just what the world looks like. Stressful. Demanding. Full of people who don't quite understand you. A Course in Miracles is essentially a program for removing those glasses. Not all at once. Gently. One day at a time. And what people discover underneath isn't naive positivity or spiritual bypassing. It's clarity, the kind of clarity that makes you realize how much energy you were spending on reactions to things that weren't actually happening the way you thought they were. So what is this thing? Exactly. Let's clear the air. Because the name creates a lot of confusion. A Course in Miracles is a self-study program. It comes in 3 parts. There's a text that lays out the ideas, a workbook with 365 daily lessons, one for each day of the year, and a manual for teachers that ties everything together. It's not a religion. There's no church. No membership. Nobody to report to. You do it on your own, at your own pace, usually starting with the workbook because that's where the rubber meets the road. And here's the thing that surprises most people: you don't have to believe any of it for it to work. The course itself says that. It asks for willingness, not faith. It asks you to try the daily exercises and notice what happens. That's it. You're not signing up for a worldview, you're running an experiment on your own perception. Now, the language can be a barrier. The course uses words like God and Spirit and Holy, and if that makes you tense up, you're not alone. But here's what I've found. The actual practice has nothing to do with adopting anyone else's theology. It has everything to do with noticing what your mind does all day long, and discovering you have more choice in that process than you ever realized. Think of it like learning a musical instrument. The instruction manual might use terminology you're not familiar with, but when you sit down and practice, what matters is what happens with your hands on the keys. The experience speaks for itself. Here's the core idea, and it's worth sitting with for a moment. The course suggests that we don't see the world as it is. We see the world as we are. Our minds are constantly projecting meaning onto everything, and then we react to our own projections as if they're facts. Let me make this concrete. David is sitting in a meeting at work. His manager says, "We need to talk about the Henderson project after this." 7 words. Completely neutral, but watch what David's mind does in the next 3 seconds. His stomach drops. His jaw tightens. He starts replaying every decision he made on that project, scanning for mistakes. He's already composing his defense. He's imagining the conversation, the criticism, maybe even the consequences. By the time the meeting ends, he's been through an entire emotional ordeal. Then his manager pulls him aside and says, "Great work on Henderson. I want to expand your role. All that suffering, all that tension and rehearsal and dread." It was generated entirely by David's mind. His manager said 9 neutral words, and David's perception engine turned them into a threat, then forced him to live inside that threat for 45 minutes. This is what the Course means when it talks about perception. Not that bad things don't happen, but that our minds are constantly manufacturing experiences that aren't actually occurring, and we're living inside those manufactured experiences as if they're real. The tinted glasses aren't just coloring what we see, they're creating entire scenes that only exist behind the lenses. And here's what makes this more than just an interesting observation. The Course says this pattern can be systematically undone. Not through willpower, not through forcing positive thoughts, through a gentle, daily retraining of how the mind interprets what it encounters. Let's talk about that word in the title. Miracles, because it's probably not what you think. In A Course in Miracles, a miracle isn't something supernatural. It's not walking on water or healing with a touch. A miracle is simply a shift in perception, a moment where you see something differently than your automatic programming would have you see it. Remember David in that meeting. The moment he catches himself mid-spiral, the moment he notices, wait, I'm reacting to a story I made up, not to anything that actually happened. That's a miracle. Not because anything magical occurred, but because his perception shifted from fear to clarity, from reaction to presence, from the tinted glasses to something closer to what's actually there. These shifts sound small. They are small, but they compound. Imagine David starts catching himself in these moments regularly. Not every time. No one's perfect. But more and more often. His meeting with the manager becomes less loaded. His morning commute loses some of its edge. That conversation with his partner where he'd normally get defensive. He pauses. He notices the glasses, and in that pause, something different becomes possible. This is what practitioners mean when they say everything gets lighter. It's not that life stops being challenging. It's that you stop adding an entire layer of suffering on top of every challenge. You stop fighting battles that exist only in your interpretation. The Course puts it beautifully. There is nothing to fear. And when you start practicing these perception shifts daily, you begin to understand what that means. Not as a platitude, as an experience. So what does the actual practice look like? Because theory is one thing. What matters is what you do on a Tuesday morning. The workbook has 365 lessons. Each one takes about 5 to 15 minutes. Some ask you to repeat a single idea throughout the day. Some ask you to look at the world around you and practice seeing it differently. Some guide you into quiet reflection. Lesson 1, for example, simply asks you to look around and say to yourself, "Nothing I see means anything." That's it. You look at a table and acknowledge that the meaning you've attached to it, the memories, The judgments, the stories, all of that was added by your mind. The table is just being a table. It sounds almost too simple, but try it. Look at something right now. A coffee cup, a window, your own hand. Can you see it without the overlay of what it means to you? Can you see it as just form and color for even a moment? That tiny gap between seeing and interpreting. That's where the whole practice lives. The early lessons work on loosening your grip on certainty. You start to notice how quickly your mind assigns meaning to everything, how automatically it categorizes and judges. By the time you're a few weeks in, you're not just doing an exercise. You're developing a new relationship with your own thinking. Later lessons introduce ideas about forgiveness, about how you share more with others than you realize, about the difference between what's real and what's projected. Each one builds on the last, and because it's one lesson per day, it unfolds at a pace your mind can actually absorb. The course doesn't ask you to understand everything. It doesn't ask you to believe. It asks you to practice, and it promises, gently but clearly, that the practice itself will show you what no amount of reading or thinking can. There's one concept that runs through the entire course, and it's probably the most misunderstood: forgiveness. When most of us hear forgiveness, we think of something painful. We think it means excusing behavior that hurt us, letting someone off the hook, pretending everything is fine when it isn't. The course means something completely different. Forgiveness in this context is the act of recognizing that your interpretation, your story about what happened, is not the whole truth. It's releasing the narrative your mind constructed and being open to seeing the situation with fresh eyes. Let me give you an example. Maria has a colleague named James who consistently takes credit for group work. She's furious. Every meeting where he does it, she feels the heat rise in her chest. She replays conversations, rehearses confrontations, vents to friends. James has become a character in her mental drama, the villain she returns to every time she feels undervalued. Now, does Maria need to pretend James isn't doing this? No. Does she need to stop advocating for herself? Absolutely not. But the course would gently point out that the person Maria is suffering over isn't actually James. It's the version of James her mind has constructed. The villain, the symbol of every time she's felt unseen. Forgiveness here means releasing that mental construction, not because James deserves it, but because Maria deserves to stop carrying it. The weight of resentment isn't punishing James. It's coloring everything Maria sees. It's the tinted glasses getting darker. When Maria can see James as another person struggling with his own insecurities, not as a symbol of her pain, something remarkable happens. The charge dissipates. She can still address the behavior directly, clearly, calmly, but without the emotional freight of 1,000 replayed grievances. This is what the course means by forgiveness. It's not about the other person. It's about clearing your own perception so you can respond to what's actually happening instead of to the story you've been telling yourself. And the course says something profound about this. When you forgive, you're not just freeing yourself. You're freeing both of you, because the judgment you hold about someone doesn't stay contained in your mind. It shapes every interaction, every glance, every tone of voice. Release the judgment, and the whole relationship has room to shift. So what's different for the people who actually do this? What changes when you practice these ideas day after day, week after week? The most common thing people report isn't some dramatic spiritual awakening. It's subtler than that. They say, "I stopped reacting so quickly." That pause before responding to a frustrating email. That breath before snapping at your kids. That moment where you would normally spiral into worry, but instead you catch yourself and think, "That's the glasses talking." Relationships shift, not because the other person changes, but because you stop reading their behavior through the filter of your old stories. Your partner's silence stops being rejection. Your friend's distraction stops being a personal slight. People become more human when you let them be something other than characters in your drama. Stress changes shape. It doesn't vanish. Life still has deadlines and bills and difficult conversations. But the layer of manufactured crisis, the constant mental commentary that turns every challenge into a catastrophe, that gets quieter. You start operating from a calmer baseline. And there's something else that people have difficulty putting into words. A sense of being less alone. Not because they've joined a group or found a community, though some do, but because when you drop the defenses and projections that keep you sealed inside your own interpretations, you start to feel a connection with other people that was always there but obscured by all that mental noise. The Course says something that sounds strange at first. You share one mind with everyone. You don't have to take that literally to feel the truth in it. When you stop projecting and start seeing clearly, other people stop being obstacles or threats or disappointments. They start being exactly what they are, which is remarkably similar to you. Struggling, hoping, trying, afraid. And in that recognition, something softens that no amount of self-help advice ever touched. So here's where we land. And I want to be direct about this, because I respect your time and your intelligence. A Course in Miracles isn't for everyone. The language can be dense. The ideas challenge things you might take for granted. It asks for consistency, showing up every day, even when you're not in the mood. Especially when you're not in the mood. But if something in what we've explored today resonated, if you recognized yourself in David's meeting or Maria's resentment or the feeling of wearing glasses you can't take off, then it might be worth trying. Here's the thing about the Course, it doesn't ask you to leap. It asks you to take one step. One lesson. One day. Look at the things around you and consider that they might not mean what you think they mean. That's it. That's the first lesson. You don't need to buy a book today, though there's a free digital copy linked in the description if you're curious. You don't need to commit to 365 days. You just need to be willing to consider that the way you've been seeing things might not be the only way. That the tinted glasses exist. That they can be removed. And if you're watching this on this channel, you've already found a place where these ideas are explored in a way that doesn't require any background, any belief system, any prerequisites. Just curiosity and a willingness to look. On this channel, we walk through the workbook lessons one by one. Each video takes a single lesson and brings it to life with real stories, practical examples, and a guided meditation to help the ideas settle from your head into your body. You can start at lesson 1 and move through them at your own pace. Because here's what I believe. Having practiced these ideas for years, peace isn't something you achieve. It's something you uncover. It's already there, underneath all the interpretations and judgments and stories. The tinted glasses are real, but they're not permanent. And the world that exists behind them is lighter, clearer, and more connected than anything the glasses ever showed you. You don't have to take my word for it. Just try the first lesson. Notice what happens, and if something shifts, even slightly, even just a moment of quiet where there used to be noise, that's your first miracle. And in this practice, one miracle is all it takes to begin. Thank you for being here today. If you'd like, there's a link to a free digital copy of A Course in Miracles in the description. It's a great place to start. And if this video helped you understand what the course is about, please leave a comment letting us know. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you for being here today and for being curious enough to explore something new. Whether you try the first lesson tomorrow or just carry this idea of the tinted glasses with you, something has already shifted simply by considering that there might be another way to see. Take good care of yourselves. We'll see you next time.